Okay. Okay, so once again, we're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines from the bottom of New Testament days. Our learning should be a source for Shalema, for the Chaylim and Abish Medish, Shimon Yehuda ben. What's Shimon's mother's name? Shimon Yehuda ben Rivka, and Ernie, which is, I forgot Ernie's name too. Yaakov Shmuel ben Chana, I believe. And as well as Chaim Tzvi's father is in critical condition, Yisrael Moshe ben Gittel. They should offer for Shalema. And Moshe ben Sarah. Is that Moshe Adler?
Yeah.
He's in big trouble? Oh. Oh, he needs a refuah. Okay. Should have a refuah Shalema. Oh, so this is your wife's grandmother. Okay,
I'd like to add Yeshayahu Mordechai Ezra.
Mordechai Ezra.
Yeshayahu Mordechai Ezra
Ezra.
ben Rachel Devera.
Rachel Devera. Should have a refuah Shalema. All our sick people should have a refuah Shalema. Today is the 95th yard site of the Altar from Slovakia. And I have a very interesting story, but not so much about the Altar from Slovakia, but about how the Rebbeinu Shalom is machshiv the Torah of every individual. And not only is the Rosh machshiv it, every little bit of Torah that every individual learns is booming through Shemayim. So when we're learning now, the whole Shemayim is shaking with it, and everybody knows what we're learning. This is the story that I heard. I heard it in Lakewood over Shabbos. I made a mistake of by Kiddush, and I made a mistake of complimenting a young man who runs an Abu Savannah program, telling him that I enjoyed his stories. He says, really, I have so many more stories to tell you. And it cost me about a half hour. But one story was very, very worthwhile. And he said over a fascinating story. The Alter from Slobodka had someone who was a Talmud of his who came to him, and the Alter from Slobodka told him a very interesting thing. He made an Al Michya, and the Alter from Slobodka told him, when you make an Al Michya, you should insert something that no one says. And that is, we say that I'm Birchas Hamazon, but nobody says that in Al Michya. But the Alter from Slobodka told him to say these things, so he took it on himself and his children that's how he made his Al Michya. And the Alter from Slobodka told him that it's a Machzer Vitri who says that. So this person passed away, right? Because if he was a Talmud of Alter from Slobodka, and Alter from Slobodka is 95th yard side, right? So this person passed away, and his son happens to be a Maggid Shir in a yeshiva in Bnei Brak. He said the name of the yeshiva. I don't remember the name of the yeshiva. It's not Vada Yeshiva. I don't know what it was, but he's a Maggid Shir in Bnei Brak. And on the day of his father's yard side, he said a shir. Leilu Nishmas, his father. And in the shir, he shared with the Olam this hanhaga that his family has, which comes from the Alter from Slobodka, which the Alter from Slobodka said comes from the Machzer Vitri, to insert Val Brisra Shechasamta V'Tzarenu Val Teirascha Shlimadatanu in the bracha. After that year, the whole yeshiva was laughing at him. Machzer Vitri nicht gestoigen, nicht geflogen. They looked it up; it's not there. Stumbled at to make chayzik of him. The whole story is probably fabricated. You didn't think we would look into it, and the mamish made asham blot out of the guy. And he felt very depressed. He was very sad. He was down to the show. You got to bail me out. And he was like a pretty, well-known Maggid Shir, and now everyone's talking about him, but he's a fraud. So he had a dream, and his father came to him in a dream, and his father told him it's emes what the Alter from Slobodka told me, and if you don't know where the Machzer Vitri is, go to Harav Friedman in London, and he will tell you who the Machzer Vitri is. So he said, now I have to look for a needle in a haystack. He had to look for a Rabbi Friedman in London. So he found out that there was a Rav in London whose name was Rabbi Friedman. It was a Chassidische. We're talking about the Litvische, right? Not the Slovakia, real Leibrak Litvaks. And he reached out to the Chassidische Rav. And the Chassidische Rav said, I don't know who the Alter for Slovakia is. I don't know for nothing. But I will tell you that 2 weeks ago, I was learning Machzer Vitri, his parish, on the Haggadah Shal Pesach. And on the Alamichya, after benching, he happens to mention there that you should stick in Valbris. I happened to learn 2 weeks ago. I don't know like how anyone knew Bas then. And this Yid has a son-in-law who's around today, whose name is Goldberger. He's a Chassidish Rebbe, I don't know what he is in London. And he said the story over from his father-in-law. My father said, like, I don't shach. How would the Alter Shalvak know in Shemayim what I'm learning 2 weeks before? It's a funny thing. But Vice the Choish, they know in Shemayim what we're learning and they keep track. So that was a pretty awesome story. Abai had a shayla from Rabbi. Kavru beregel. What happens if someone was Leilenu Nifter on Yom Tov and he was buried on Yom Tov? Like my great grandfather, he was Nifter on the second day of Pesach. So the halacha is regel oiloloi lemin shloshim. Does the regel count for the shloshim? So you can start counting day 1 from the day of the Kvura. Or maybe you have to start counting the shloshim from scratch after Yom Tov, just like you do with the Shiva. Liminin Shiva like a Mavoil. I have no suffix that Shiva for sure you start counting day 1 on Ishvachag. Doing the Hagam mitzvah Shiva Beregel. Because you're not doing, it's not just counting days, you actually have to act Avelos. There's no acts of Avelos that are required during the Shiva that we do on Yom Tov. But whether or not the Yom Tov could count as the 30 days, that already is possible. Because there are certain restrictions that we do during the Shloshim, such as we don't cut our hair, we don't wash our clothing, they do apply on Chol Hamoed on Yom Tov. So Abizoi, why can't we already start counting the days towards the Shloshim already from Yom Tov? My what Ramaloi, so Rava answered Abaye, Einoi Oilo. It doesn't work. If someone buried a mace 2 days before Yom Tov, so the halacha is he gets 2 days of Shiva in before Yom Tov, and then after Yom Tov, Moine Chamish Yomim Achar Regel. Umalachto Nasis Al Yidei Acherim, and his malacha could be done through others, so we could have people do malacha in his house, whatever he needs to get done. And this is a key word. The Eini Rabbim is asking Imoy, they don't have to be Menachem Oval after the Yom Tov, because they were already Menachem Oval him on Yom Tov. Every person he encountered, of course, was Menachem him, even though it was Yom Tov. So he already had the 7 days of Nechama. So therefore, the 5 days after Yom Tov that he has to continue to Firzach with and Haggis of Avelis, he doesn't have to host the people coming to be Menachem Oval. Why should Farnis Asku Boy Berega? The rule as to how we do these things are as follows. Anything that's because of Avelis, that you'll have to be Mashlim after the Regal. So therefore, Regal Mafsikoi. So you have the 2 days of Avelis that he pravid before Yom Tov, and then 5 days that he has to prav Avelis after Yom Tov. But the Chol Shahu Mishum Iskei Rabbim, but the things that the people do, such as the Nichum, Ein Regal Mafsikoi, that continues on throughout the Yom Tov. So therefore, he doesn't need all the visitors. He doesn't need all the visitors after Yom Tov. What happens? So that's the first case of the Bryce. The first case of the Bryce is when someone was nifter 2 days before Yom Tov. Now we're going to discuss the question that's relevant to our Shaila, where Rava Paskin that the days of Yom Tov do not count towards the Shloshim, and you have to start counting the Shloshim from scratch from day 1 on the day after Yom Tov, just like the Shiva. Cover Shloshim Yom. What if someone died and was buried, leaving 3 days remaining to the end of Yom Tov? So the halach is Moine Shiva Achar Regel. Shiva, you start from day 1 on Isruchad, and our Ba Yomim Harishonim, the first 4 days of the 7 days after Yom Tov that is sitting Shiva, Rabbi Misaskambai, people continue to be Menachem Oval. But Shloshi Yom Achronim, but the last 3 days of a Shiva, Ein Rabbi Misaskambai, there they don't come to be Menachem Oval. Shekfarnis Asku Beregel, because the 3 days on Yom Tov after the Kfura, people were Menachem Oval and then. So therefore, he only needs 4 more days of Nichem Avelim. So the last 3 days of his Shiva, he doesn't need the Nichem Avelim. And then the Brisa sticks in an interesting clause. V'regel oilolo. What does that mean, v'regel oilolo? it must be Leminyan Shloshim, because it's definitely not Oiloi in Shiva. We just said that he has to sit Shiva all over again. So V'regel Oiloi, my lava Seifa. Let's say V'regel Oiloi is referring to the Seifa, which is someone who lost a loved one on Yom Tov, and the Brisa says that you do count the Shloshim already on Yom Tov, which is not like Rava. Rava said you have to start counting from scratch on Isru Chag. So Tomorrow Loya Reisha, maybe when the Brisa here says for regular Oiloi, it's not going back on the immediate case before, it's going all the way back on the Reisha where someone died before Yom Tov. Where someone died before Yom Tov, of course the Yom Tov counts as part of the days of the Shloshim. Esvei. So that Kasha on Rava did not succeed in slugging him up. So again, what is the halacha? If someone is nifter on Yom Tov, Rava holds the shloshim only begins starting on Isra Chag, just like the Shiva. Halacha l'maisa, I think you start counting the shloshim after Yom Tov, I believe, but I don't know for sure. Yeah, but I don't think the Veilus is telling that. That happens to also be a parallel universe that's happening as well. I don't know if the Hilchos of Veilus are directly dependent on the Neshama. It would fit in good, if so, but right. No, it would fit in good.
That's also the Neshama. The Shiva is also the person
yeah, no, I hear no, it works. The Svara works good. The Svara works good. Yeah, it's very logical. Because let's try another attack on it. Regel oil Leminyan Shloshim. The regel counts as one of the days of the Shloshim. Katan cover with Chilas Regel if the Kfur was on the first day of the Yom Tov. Moine Shiva Achar Regel. You count the Shiva after the regel. So the first day of Shiva, of course, is Isru Chag. Similar to what we said earlier. There is no nicham available at all after Yom Tov because you already had a full Yom Tov, a full 7 days of nicham available. You find this asku by beregel, and here it says beregel oilot. Here there's only one case. The case is when the person was nifter on the first day of Yom Tov, and there it says beregel oilot l'shloshim tiyufta. So you have a clear right that it is. So actually, you see here from the Gemara says tiyufta, and there's an aleph over here. So it seems to be that we paskin that the regel is oilot. But let's see the Gemara weiter. So there's more on it. He also Ravin, Rabbi Yochanan. When Ravin came, he said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, I feel the cover regel. Even if the kfur was in the regel, it's still oilot. And that's how Rabbi Eliezer paskin to Rabbi Padas's son. I feel cover beregel. I guess it wasn't Rabbi Eliezer who died that Rabbi Padas was asking about because he paskin for his son. His son was sitting Shiva. He said even if the kfur was beregel, you do count it as a shloshim. So I'm wrong. The Gemara seems to come out l'maskana that you do count the Yom Tov days towards the shloshim. Tandraban. Kaim kviyas amit the shloshim yom kodim regel. What happens if someone sat Shiva, so he feared Bavelos, one of the hanhagas of Avelos is to turn the bed over. He did that for 3 days before the regel, meaning the kfur was 3 days before the regel. He won't have to do it at all after the regel. He doesn't have to make kviyas mita at all after the regel. Our Mishnah said that it's 3 days before Yom Tov that you need in order for the Yom Tov to be batal the Shiva. But the Chachamim say, who argue on our Mishnah, according to the regular pshat that we had, but Rashi in his second pshat learns that the Mishnah itself is lav dafka, and it really also means a shpil sha'achas. So we're still with the Chachamim, but clearly the Chachamim hold even if someone sat Shiva for a moment before the Yom Tov, so the Yom Tov is mevatel the Shiva, while Rabbi Eliezer holds you need 3 days. Amar Rabbi Eliezer b'Shimon, the same machlokes that you quoted between Rabbi Eliezer and the Chachamim, divrei Beis Shammai, divrei Basil. There's a machlokes between Beis Shammai and Basil about the same thing. Beis Shammai oimim shloisha yomim, Basil oimim afilu yom echad. Okay, why the Gemara does not limit Katanoi, I'm not sure. Zok the Gemara weiter. Amar Rav Huna. Umar Huna, Umar Abchia Bar Abba, Umar B'Yochanan, Amrila, Omar. Let me see the Bach. There's a lot of action over here. Omar, Amrila, Amarle, Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Abchia Bar Abba, Rabbi Abchia Bar Abba, Rabbi Funa. So there's a shaila how this went down. Who said this to who? Afilu Yom Echad, Afilu Shah. Even one day or one shah is enough to say that the Yom Tov is Mabatal the Shiva, which is how we paskin. Rav Amar Halacha Katan Didan, the Amar Shloisha. Rav says the halacha is like our Tana, who says that you need 3 days. Now this here is very controversial. So let's see what Rashi says, and we'll see that the Haggash, my Rav Ranshbrook says. So Tana Didan, who is our Tana? Our Tana is Hani Tana de Bryce, not the Tana of our Mishnah. Why does Rashi say the Tana of our Brisa, not the Tana of our Mishnah? Because Rashi learned, like we said earlier, that the Tana of our Mishnah, when it said that 3 days is lavdafka. It really means 1 day. So therefore, Tana Didan, according to Rashi, must mean the Brisa that we quoted here that says 3 days. But Tosfos actually learned like Rashi's other pshat. So Tosfos would argue on this the Brisa, and he would say like the Tana of our Mishnah. That's what the Haggash Marashal talks about. Zog to Gemara Vayter. Ravina Ikloi L'Surah de Pras. Ravina showed up to the Surah of Pras. So I'm not sure exactly what that was. Pras is a river. So I guess there was a Surah that was on the banks of the river Pras, and I guess there was another Surah as well. I'm sorry? And that was on the banks of the Pras River. Okay. Amalei Reb Chaviva the Ravina. And Reb Chaviva told Ravina, Hilchas Amai, what is halacha? Amalei Afilu Yom Echad Afilu Shah Achas, which is how we pass them. Yosy Reb Chia Bar Abba, Reb Ami, Reb Yitzchak Nafcha. So these 3 tzaddikim and Talmid Chacham were sitting. Reb Chia Bar Abba, Reb Ami, and Reb Yitzchak Nafcha were sitting. Akila to Rabbi Yitzchak ben Elazar. They were sitting on the front gate of Rabbi Yitzchak ben Elazar's house. And Novak Milsa ben B'nayu. And what do they what do Talmid Chacham do when they gather together? They snooze on learning. So the following halacha came out from them. Following member. Victor asked me yesterday, how do we know that Avelus is 7 days? So I told him it's with Rabbana. And I didn't know yet yesterday that the Gemara here was going to give us a nesmachta. Minayin la'avelus shiva. How do we know that Avelus is 7 days? The chsiv v'yafachti chagechem la'evel. I'm going to change your chag to Avelus. So we compare Avelus to chag. Ma chag shiva, af Avelus shiva. In fact, the Gemara, I'll find you a chag that's only 1 day. They matzeres the chajema. So the Gemara, that's also true. Sometimes Avelus is only 1 day. How do we know that a shmur rechaika, meaning someone heard about the death of a loved one more than 30 days after it occurred? How do you know that person only sits shiva for 1 day? So we actually are comparing Avelus to a chag in 2 ways. Sometimes it's 7 days, and sometimes it's 1 day. When it's a shmur kroiva, then it's 7 days. And when it's a shmur rechaika, then it's 1 day like shuas. Tanu Rabbanan. Shmur kroiva, heges shiva ushloishim. You have the full halachas of Avelus, the shiva and the shloishim. Shmur rechaika, and you heges elayam echad. So there's no shiva, there's no shloishim, there's just 1 day total. Ezehu kroiva, ve'ezehu rechaika. Kroiva is b'sorich shloishim. Kroiva is if you heard the bad news within 30 days. Rechaika is lachar shloishim, divrei Rabbi Akiva. The Chacham are not mekel by a shmur rechaika. Ach a shmur kroiva, ach a shmur rechaika, noheg is shiva u'shloishim. Amar Rabba bar bar Chana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, kol makom she'atem moitze. This is a very important line. Kol makom she'atem moitze yochid mekel. The Rabbi machmirim. Normally, when a yachar is mekel and the Rabbi is machmer, you always go basarayif. Halacha kerabim. Chutz mizu. Here in Hilchas Avelus, we don't follow the normal rules of halacha kerabim. She'av abisher Rabbi Kiva mekel. The Chacham machmirin, even though the Rav are machmer, and it's only a yachar Rabbi Kiva who's mekel. by a shmur rechaika. If there's only one day, halacha Rabbi Akiva. Why? Amar Shmuel halacha kedivra mekel ba'avel. So this was one of the kashas we had. Why do you need a special rule of Shmuel that halacha kedivra mekel ba'avel? Avel is Rabbanan. You always say Safek Rabbanan l'kula. So one of the Rishonim answers exactly with this Gemara. Normally, even though you say Safek Rabbanan l'kula, but you still follow the other rules of Shas, such as Yached v'Rabim, halacha v'Rabim. But by Avelus, you don't even follow that rule. You always go by the Mekel, even though he's a Yachid, can take it around. Rabbi Chanina, Achile Shmua Doavua Mibechazoi. Rabbi Chanina heard.
Yosy,
Yes.
sorry. So what do the Rabbanim do with the fact that they say it doesn't matter if they're chayka or not? So then what do they do with the smachta of Yom Tov?
It's only in the Samachta anyway, so they don't they hold it's not a right because really it's all
where they learn 7 days from period.
So the question would be, well, they have 7 days from Yom Tov. The question is, what do they do with the fact that Shavuos is also Yom Tov?
Right, that's
I don't know. It's a good question. This question is when we found the Makar that Shiva is 7 days, we learned it from Chag because it compares Chag to Eva. The Gemara asked, you find Chag that's only 1 day as well.
Right.
So according to our Mahalach, you use the comparison to 1 day for Shemur Chayka and 7 days for Shemur Kroiva. But according to the Shita who holds there's no such thing, there's no difference. Even though Shemur Chayka needs 7 days, so then you have the Kasha. How do you know when you compare Avel to Chag at 7 days? Maybe it's only 1 day. That's a good Kasha. I don't know the answer. The Reb Chanina Ashele Shmua Da'avua, he found out that his father passed away. Mi Bei Chazoi, he got the message from Bei Chazoi. Also the Kamed Reb Chisda. So he asked Reb Chisda, do I need to sit Shiva and Shloshim, or is it just 1 day? Amalei, he told him, Shmu Rechaika, Einan Heges Elo Yoimech. Reb Nosson Bar Ami, also the Shmu de Ime, Mi Bei Chazoi. He found out that his mother passed away. Also the Kamed Rava. Amalei, Hare Amru, Shmu Rechaika, Einan Heges Elo Yoimech Bavad. He also got that same sack. When do you say there's only 1 day? Is Bechamisha Meisa Mitzvah, which are a brother, a sister, a son, a daughter, and a wife. Those 5, a Shmu Rechaika, you only keep 1 day of Shiva. But for a parent, Shiva Ushloishim, even by a Shmua Rechaika, you have to keep the full Shiva and Shloishim. So how could you paskin? How could you paskin for Rab Nosson Bar Ami, or how could you paskin for Rab Chanina, which it was their parents that they only have 1 day of Avelus? On my la yichidahi, the brisa that you just quoted is a yachid, and we don't hold like it. We learn like Rabbi Kiva, that Rabbi Kiva holds even for a parent by a Shemur Rechaika, there's only 1 day. Titania, Maisa umeis Aviv Shal Rab Tzadik beginzik. The father of Rab Tzadik passed away in Ginzik. He only found out 3 years later. He came to ask Elisha ben Avuya, and the Zakanim that were with Elisha ben Avuya. And they told him, Shiva u'shloishim. They told him to be noig Shiva u'shloishim. And when the son of Rabbi Achia in Goyla died, Yoshev alav Shiva u'shloishim. He also sat Shiva u'shloishim. So, well, let's see. One of them was a father, right? It was Avav Shor of Tzadik, and the other one was a son, right? So you see that there is such a shita that holds you need Shiva u'shloishim, and we don't hold it yet.
When do they call him Elisha ben Avuya, and when do they call him Acher?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure how that works.
I'm surprised that they invoke his real name here, because ordinarily they won't recall his name in regard to halacha.
Uh-huh.
I don't think so.
He lost his credibility.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a good argument. But I was trying to focus on what Mati's asking here. We're trying to say Yechidahi, and we're not machalak between a parent and the rest of the 5 craving. But here it seems like there's no chiluk either. It's shiva u'shloishim. So it's not really a direct right to what we're discussing. So I'm sorry. Well, it disagrees with Rabbi Kiva, and we all look at Rabbi Kiva. So that's what Rashi says. Yichidoi v'loy Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva loishna avimai loishna shar kodim. So I guess it's a chido who expresses that Rabbi Kiva is a split. There's no split. It's either everybody is shiva shloshim or everybody's one day for Shmur Chagim. Before we go weiter, we're about to get involved into the Brady Bunch type of relationship. His, mine, ours. So I sent out a WhatsApp just to try to clarify the relationship last night. So I'm going to bring it up now so that it'll be easier to understand the Gemara now. Okay, so what I have over here is you have oh, okay, so that answers David's question. Okay, so he says in note number 27, this is not the bad guy. Okay, so we have as follows. I'm not sure if it's clear. Let me see if I could focus it a little bit. Okay, you have as follows. we're focusing on Reb Acha right now. So Reb Acha is right over here. So Reb Acha, well, you can't see what I'm showing you because I don't have this on. So Reb Acha married Rachel, but when Reb Acha, let me start. Reb Acha was first married to Leah. And Reb Acha, we learned in Brisk, and he came from Brisk. They read him Ashidach, they read him Leah, and he married Leah, and they had a son by the name of Ivoy, not Oivai, Ivoy. Okay, so that was Reb Acha's son. Reb Acha's son from Leah was Ivoy. Then Leah passed away, and Reb Acha married Leah's sister. And Leah's sister her name was Rachel. And Rachel and Reb Acha together had another son, Reb Chia. Now Rachel happened to have been married before. So when Reb Acha married Rachel, not only was it a second marriage for Reb Acha, it was also a second marriage for Rachel. Rachel, with her first husband, had a child. We're going to call her Bas. So Rachel, she wasn't big like a bus, but they will call her Bus. So Rachel had a daughter from her first marriage. We're going to call her Bus. And from her second marriage to Reb Acha, she had a son, Reb Chia. Now, being that they were one big happy family like the Brady Bunch, Ivoy and Bas grew up in the same house because now Ivoy's father was married to Bas's mother. So they liked each other and they got married. I don't know if there was a shotgun involved. I'm not sure. I don't know exactly how it happened. I don't know if there was a big tumult. I'm not sure how it worked out. I don't know what people were saying at the time. I'm not sure what the invitation. I don't know. But I know they got married. And so Rabbi Ivoy married Bas. And it must have been a good shidduch. They must have been good parents because their child was Rav. So Kum Techois, Rav is the son of the daughter. He's the son of the sister of Reb Chia, because the sister of Reb Chia through his mother is Bas. So Rav is the son of the sister of Reb Chia, but Rav is also the son of the brother of Reb Chia. So Rav is Reb Chia's nephew in two different ways, because his mother is Reb Chia's half sister, and his father is Reb Chia's half brother. Right? That makes sense? That's the way we all became the Brady Bunch. Okay, so based on that, the Gemara says as follows. Rav, who was Bar Achva the Reb Chia, he was the nephew by being the son of Reb Chia's sister. So Rav Bar Achva the Reb Chia, he was the son of the sister of Reb Chia. Sorry, Achva's brother. Rav was the son of the brother of Reb Chia. He was Ivoy's son. Also, the Hu Bar Achva the Reb Chia, he was also a nephew of Reb Chia by being the son of Bas, the son of the sister of Reb Chia. Kisalak Lahasam, when he went up, I guess to Eretz Yisrael, and he went to visit Reb Chia. Now Reb Chia was his uncle, so he went to visit his uncle. Amar Lei Abakai, his uncle asked him, "Is your father alive?" In other words, is my brother, my half brother Iva, is he alive? Amar Lei. So what did Rav answer? He didn't answer, give him a straight answer. He says, Ima Kayamis, what are you asking me about my father? You're not worried about my mother? She's also your sister. Amalai, okay, Ima Kayamis, is your mother alive? Amalai Abakaim, I didn't even answer yet about my father. So what are you what are you talking about? So right away, Rav Chia chapped that Rav didn't want to give him bad news. Because of that, he was answering in this roundabout manner. And that's when Ivoi became Oivei, because he realized Oivei, Sai, my brother must have passed away, and Oivei, Sai, my sister must have passed away. So as soon as Reb Chia realized that he lost two siblings, Amalei the Shammai, he told the Shamis, first right away, take off my shoes. And Rashi says, his Abel al Achi v'Achoisai. I realized I got a Shemur Rechaika, so I have to be misabel right now. Then, immediately after that, being that I hold of Mixus HaYov Kuloi, and there's only one day of Shiva, the Hoylech Achirai, Kelai, Leveis HaMerchatz, and I'm going to go take a shower. Clearly, that's something that you're not allowed to do during the Shiva. Zok L'mor Shema Minot Las. Rav Chia instructed his shamus in this fashion because he was trying to make a statement. He wanted to teach his Talmidim Torah. So he took these actions to demonstrate and to teach his Talmidim Torah. And there's three halachas that he wanted to teach his Talmidim. Shema Mina, Aval Aser B'Ninas HaSandal. You see right away that an Aval may not wear shoes. That's why he took his shamus to take off his shoes. U'Shema Mina Shmur Rechaika Einin Heges Ela Yom Echad. And you also know that a Shemur Rechaika is only one day because he only was misabel for a little while. U'Shema Mina Mikdus Yom Kakuloi. And merely taking off his shoes for a couple of minutes was enough, and that's why he wanted to go to the Beis HaMerchatz afterwards to show that his avelus is over. Oh, so the kasha is we just quoted from Rabbi Chia that they said that he sit Shiva and Shloshim. Here you see Rabbi Chia did something differently. You see he only did one day. Zok Tumara, you're right, because there's two different people. There's Rabbi Chia Lechut. We're talking about Rabbi Chia, who was only knowing one day for a Shemur Rechaika, and Rav Achia L'chud, he was not the same person, and he held even for a Shemur Rechaika, you keep 7 days. Amar B'Yosy bar Avin, Shoma Shmua Kroiva Bereva. What happens if someone heard a Shmua Kroiva Bereva? So he heard it, but it was right towards that. So let's say he heard it on day 28, wasn't 30 days yet, but on Yom Tov, before he can start sitting Shiva, he found out that he had lost a loved one. By the time Motzei Yontif arrives, where he would sit Shiva, it's already a Shmur Rechaika. It's more than 30 days since the death occurred. So the halach is Oilaloi, the Yontif counts, and because of that, he's only going to have to keep 1 day. Zokt Rashi, even though when he heard the bad news, nevertheless, the regel will be mashlim the shloishim to make it into a shmur rechaika. To have a shmur rechaika. Tani Rav Abadim in Kisri Kamed Rav Yochanan Shama shmur krayva b'Shabbos. U'lomoy Shabbos nasas rechaika. So once again on Shabbos he heard a shmur krayva was day 30, I guess, and then much of Shabbos when he would start seeing Shiva, it became rechaika. So the question is, when someone has a shmur rechaika, and he only is 1 day of Shiva, Kaireya or Ena Kaireya. So does such a Shiva require the oval to rise Kriya? Ena Kaireya is Rashi. Achshav the Noigim Echad l'Shmur Rechaika. Does someone rise Kriya for a Shmur Rechaika? Ramani Amar Ena Kaireya. He does not rise Kriya. Rav Chanina Amar Kaireya. He does rise Kriya. Amar Ramani Rav Chanina B'Shtema L'Didi. According to me, Da'amina Ena Kaireya. I hold there's no Kriya. It makes sense. Hanid Lo Ikavel Shiva. Since there's no Avelis Shiva, you see it's not a regular Avelis, it makes sense to argue that there also shouldn't be a Kriya. Like Rashi says, Shiva in a Kriya. There's no Shiva. And you need Shiva to rise Kriya. The Amrit Kriya, you hold that you do rise Kriya below Shiva. Do you ever have Kriya without Shiva? Who said you need to have Shiva to have Kriya? Who said one is dependent on the other? Isi the father of Abzera. Ramila Achvad Reb Zer, or maybe he was the brother of Zer. Kamed Reb Zer, he told us Reb Zer, and this is what he said: Misha Ein Loi Chaluk Lukroy. What if someone doesn't even have a beggar to tear? And during the shiva, a beggar showed up that now he could rise kriya. The halacha is b'soich kriya, b'soich shiva kriya. If the beggar shows up during the shiva, he will rise kriya. La'achar shiva, einay kriya, and after the shiva, he won't tear it. So far, you don't have the raya that you do kriya without shiva. But on your abzera basrei, but your abzera added, and he said, "B'amedavar mamurim." Where do you say that you don't rise kriya after the shiva is b'chamisha meisei mitzvah? So you see, there's such a concept that you could rise kriya even though there's no shiva, because by a father and a mother you do kriya even after the shiva. Zok the Gemara, that's not a raya. So Rav Mani said that's not a raya. Kitan yahi l'chavod abba ve'imoi. Really, there's nothing kriya. As a special covet abba ve'imoi, the kriya would be even after shiva. But you normally don't find kriya without shiva, and therefore by Shmur Chayker, Rav Mani believes that there shouldn't be a kriya. Taner Rabban, Kol Amar b'Parshas Kaihanim, Shekayin mitama lahen. All of the relatives that in the parsha of the Kaihanim, it says that a kohen could be mitama for them. That's what the pasuk says. So all of these in the list that the kohen is mitama lahen, aval misabel alei. They all require shiva. Al oisin kroivim, the kroivim that a kohen is allowed to be mitama to, those are the kroivim that shiva applies to. Ve'eluhein, ishtoi, his wife, ava ve'imai, his parents, achav achoisa, his siblings, v'no yavita, his children. By sifu alein, they added on to the list of people the one must sit shiva for. Achav, his brother, v'achoisai, habesula me'imai. So not only is it the brother from the father, it's also the brother who's only a brother from the mother, and a sister of Basula who's a sister from the mother. And v'achaisin nesua bein me'avav bein me. And if it's a sister that's both a father's sister through the father and through the mother, that sister someone should shiva for, even though she's nesua, even though she's not a Basula. Where are you? If it's a sister from the mother only, then she's a basula. That's which is the sister through a father. If it's a sister through a father and mother, it should be nowhere. I hear. So let me see what Rashi says. Let's see Rashi. I'm sorry, it's right there. The Kramashma me'avav shloi me'imah. The pasuk is mashma only from the father and not from the mother. Achos in the suah be'me'avav me'imah the bekrolei ashkon ela abasula. By achos me'imah, you only find that it's a basula. So why do you need achos in the suah be'me'avav me'imah? Maybe because the pasuk says that if it's achos me'imah, it's only a basula. What? Means even from one of them. So if it's a basula, it's only me'ima. But if it's nesua, then it's beimah beimah, even though it's further away. So it's not intuitive. If it's in both for sure. Because let me buy me other ela filu me'imah nami. That's the question. Achayis nesua beimah beimah. Let me buy me other ela filu me'imah nami. Okay, so that's what you're saying. You're correct. So if it's me'imoi only, then it's only a basula. So if it's a basula, it's only me'imoi. If it's nesua, it's me'imoi amayel. Okay, good. Thank you very much. Okay, gewaltig. Just like you misabel on these immediate 7 krayim, kach misabel al shneim shalahem. You're also misabel on the shneim shalahem. And Rashi says that means avi aviv, his grandfather, Val ben Benoy and his grandson, Val ben Bitoy and the grandson, the son of his daughter, Val ben Achoisa. So the immediate relatives of all of his immediate relatives also trigger a shiva for him. Divrei Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Shimon Lezoimer, Eini misabel ela al ben Benoy val avi aviv. So we're going to have to see what's the difference between Rabbi Akiva and Shimon Lezoimer. Anybody who you're misabel for, you also have to be misabel with. So let's have a closer look at the three shittas. Rabbi Kiva says shnin shalom, which Rashi tells us that any of theirs, but Tosha speaks out to clarify. Pirush hanay lodim mehen, anyone who's born to your immediate relative. Avol ba'achayim u'v'nishayseim ha'yimasupik b'toysus harav u'v'shem rabbi v'loidan ha'maishna. So the shaila is, when it says shnim shalom, does it only mean their children, or does it also mean their siblings? That's a shaila that Tosha says. The Chachamim say that is Rabbi Kiva. Ben Elazar says only al ben benoi balavi oven, which means not. I'm sorry. That's right. And Tosha clarifies. Pirish b'Tosha harav v'shem rabbi duhu adin avi imay uvaspita. So basically, grandparents or grandchildren, but nothing through the siblings. Any person that you would be misabel for, you're misabel with, which would seem to be shneim, all the shneim. In fact, the Chachamim seem to be saying the same thing as the Tanakama. The nafkamina is imay bebayis. When you say kol shem misabel lov misabel imay, that means only if you're with them. If you're with them and they're in avelos, while you're with them, that's when you have to prav avelos. But the Tanakama said, which is Rabbi Kiva, holds you have to be mizabel shniim shon even if they're not around. In front of your wife, nahagavilta. Rashi says, "Ba'apa the itzach in front of your wife, kishi avela if she's an avela. The hainami kol shem misabel alav kohen ishtay misabel imay b'fanav." So that's the same svar. When you're with her, out of respect for her, you fizich with avelos. But below Yapa, if she's not around, you don't have to fizich with avelos. Mar ukva shachiv lei bar chamua. His brother-in-law, I think his brother, the son of his mother-in-law, right? I think what? So his father-in-law. So his brother-in-law. So his brother-in-law died. Savar lebeis of Allah shiva u'shloishim. He wanted to be nisabel for him, the full shiva and shloishim. All Rav Huna Lagabei, Rav Huna came. Achche, he saw that he was sitting shiva like a regular oval. Amrullah, he told him to deny somebody Islamaichel. What, you're looking to get free meals? Because if people sit shiva, they sit over meals. Looking to try to get free meals? Lo Amru l'chvod ishtoi. The only people that you need to be misabel with your wife, l'chavod your wife, is alachama v'chamoisai, her parents, but not her siblings. You don't have to be misabel with her on those things. The Jews' food is better. Titania, Misha Mace, Chama by Chamoisa. If one lost a father-in-law or mother-in-law, Ein Rishoy, luck of his Ishtoi, Lias Kechelas, Lias Pakeses. He can't force his wife to dress up for him, and that, because he wants to be intimate with her. He can't force her to do that while she's just lost her parents. Ella koifa mitasoi v'noigim avelos. To the contrary, he has to fizich with avelos when he's with her. And the same thing, if one of his parents passed away, she's not allowed $1 for love. The koifa mitasa when I haggis imay avelos. V'tanya, another brayso. Abisha amru any rashoy luck of his ishtoi. But the MS Amru Moizeges Loyas Akais. She could pour a kais for him. Umatzas Lemita. Now Matzas Lemita is a steer at the Kaifa Mitasa. She's allowed to make his bed. Umachetes Loy Panav Yagdal Baraka. So frankly, Markashina Dadi. Is it not a steer? What does it mean, Matzas Lemita, if it says that he has to be Kaifa's Mita with it? Elav Shamina Kan Bechama Bechamoisai Kan Beshar Kraven. The Tanya Yidich that says but she can do all these things. This means if it's his brother-in-law or sister-in-law, that's where he doesn't have to be misabel with her and he doesn't have to make kfiyas mita. But if it's his father-in-law or his mother-in-law, avada, he has to be kfiyas mita together with her. Shmamina. Okay, let's stop over here. Yeah.
Yeah.